councils by involving their voice, then hopefully we'll be able to come up with a school meal review that works for them as well.
Daphne, Caine?
There's also an education piece, part of the nutritional information, what's good for your health, what's good for your brain activity, what's good for your teeth as well. Yeah. And the more education we can do, a broader piece, hopefully to inform those at secondary school who have the option of going to a tuck shop or purchasing at the petrol station on the way in, compared with primary school. Now, there are a few toast clubs or breakfast clubs, and it isn't wide across the piece. There's probably a debate to be had. What is the need for that? Because some parents would say, well, no, it's my responsibility and I will give my child breakfast. But as Sarah explained, sometimes it depends on the child. And I've also got one who will eat anything put in front, like scrambled eggs this morning, and another one who'll have a chocolate mousse. But actually, if that's all they will have before they go to school, I'd still rather they were eating something than nothing. The bit where the department is looking at is very firmly in the school lunch space. Now, secondary schools have much more autonomy over their menus and over the provision generally and break times as well. Whereas in primary school, there's nutritionalists and department menus, and they do an average cost. So the £4.54 is the average cost across the week or the month of the provision, and the menus are all put on the department's website. But I would like, as soon as resources permit. Now, I have to say that within the department, most of the staff resources have gone to the front line, to the schools and support roles and to teachers, whereas in the department we probably can't change policies and look into everything all at once that perhaps I would like to do, because we've many competing priorities on our time. But in the next year, I think there is time to take stock and say, how do we reduce food waste? How do we get a better menu? How do we reduce the unnecessary sweet things that are possibly kept into the menu, where you can buy those outside? In schools, I'm firmly of the opinion it should be nutritious meals, absolutely, that the children find tasty and appealing, but that deliver a rounded menu and meal that everyone can benefit from. But they already do. I mean, salad bars are really popular. They have choice, but particularly with more diets, vegan and vegetarian choices, it is very hard and costly to meet the demands of everybody.
OK, let's go to the lines now. David, hello. David, you're live with the Education, Sport and Culture Department.
Oh, good afternoon. It's a simple question for the Minister, if I may, Andy. And the question is, Daphne, why do you and your department continue to treat parents with contempt?
Oh, you have to be a bit more specific.
OK, we'll go into three different areas then. Firstly, parents are not allowed sight of the full tribal school validation reports. They just get a desk-approved précis. Why can't they have sight of the full report? Secondly, in your former days as a backbencher, Daphne, I recall in January 2019, you presented to Tynwald tables of school attainment data. That was in an era when you championed league tables. Fast forward to 2024, and you appear to have had a conversion on the road to Damascus, and now with breathtaking hypocrisy, quite frankly, you're against league tables. You said in yourself in an interview with Isle of Man newspapers, it's unacceptable for parents who want to know about school performance to have to trawl through 32 websites, where much of the data, quite frankly, is wrong, selective or inconsistent when you check it with FOI answers. And finally then, why doesn't your department adopt a more challenging performance metrics to allow for cross-jurisdictional benchmarking instead of continually misleading parents by saying we can't compare? Yes, we can. You choose not to. You can factor out state school results from the UK. You can create your own tables. You can even ask FOI questions of the UK. For example, why don't we take part in the International Programme for Student Assessment Scheme? So there's three areas for you to think on.
OK.
Well, thank you. And I'd say absolutely, I want children to have a positive experience at school, and I really want to see our students excel and exceed, and to see our results improve over the years. But putting it into context of the moment, we've come out of years of COVID and a number of years of huge amounts of challenges that nobody could have foreseen. And in terms of the data and having league tables, every education professional I have ever engaged with is not in favour of that happening at all. And actually, when you say that you have to go through 32 schools to get the data, well, most most people's children go to one or two schools. They don't go to all 32. And actually what's important is how your child performs and how your child progresses and attains and fulfills their potential. So all the educational thinking, and I defer to my two colleagues here with both first-hand experience of working in the school systems, but our results this year are an improvement on last year. Well, that's a positive, and well done all the students and the teachers involved. And in terms of how we put better information out for parents and the action plan and the teachers' improvement plan that is for the school to have, if you were having your HR assessment and it said, oh, you've really got to work on these areas, that wouldn't be known by the rest of everybody around. That would be for the people charged with delivering it to be fully informed and be able to tackle it and take action.
Have you changed your mind on league tables?
I don't think they'd be helpful in the Isle of Man context. What are we going to say? That some year groups come in and QE2 has a really good year, and then the next year Ramsey Grammar School does. Are we thinking that students in Douglas are going to say, oh, well, the school in Ramsey's really good. We're going to bus children out there. My children will go there, and you're not in your own area with your own students. Children vary, students vary, different challenges factored in. Our schools, when I did complete that comparison that was done by an outside person collating the research, all the schools were between place 19 and 29 within the northwest area, and each year different schools will leapfrog and have a better year in maths or have a better year in English or other subjects. So it is very hard to get meaningful data, and when you say you can do FOIs and you can factor in and out other information, well, you can factor in and out information. How meaningful is it to the individual who just wants to know that their student is able to attend school or access the curriculum, learn the best way they can, achieve the best results they can for the individual? And so our education system is about making it the best it can be for everybody to access.
Okay, Paul Craine?
Specifically on the league tables issue, the league tables are so flawed when you get involved in them. And we really do have so many differences between schools in the Isle of Man, schools in England and Wales. But just taking an Isle of Man perspective, as the Minister said, the performance of a year group in a particular school passing through one year compared with the next year and compared with the year before, there really are differences. I worked as the coordinating advisor for 11 to 19 education in the department for 15 years. I often had parents saying, we're moving to the Isle of Man, which is the best school. And when you start breaking down what they're looking for and you say, well, what do you mean by the best school? And they'll talk about exam results, and you sort of say, well, are you looking at a child who's looking at A's and B's, or are you looking at a child who's not going to hit the highest grades? And when you narrow it down, what they would want from a league table, they say, if I knew the position of the league table, well, you've just told me your child is expected to get A's and B's. Do you want to know which school did best for A's and B's? Because the school that did better on the C's margin was this school. The school that did better A's and B's was that school. You can't put these into a league table. And then when you get down to it, parents used to say, well, where should I send my child? So I said, well, look, I'm satisfied that whichever school your child went to, they would come out with a very similar set of grades. They might find that they like one subject better than another because they particularly got on with one teacher or something, but they'd come out with broadly the same set of grades. So where should I send them then? Well, send them to the local school. That's the community they're living in. That's where all their friends are going. It makes sense to do that. It really won't impact significantly on their outcomes.
Okay, a final word, David?
Absolutely delusional from the panel there. I mean, parents, I know that league tables are Marmite, but there's plenty of parents that were out them. The Positive Action Group published a set. They had over 33,000 downloads, and that's for an Isle of Man area. I get repeated requests, like maybe Paul does, from people moving to the island saying, where do we want to go? I didn't send my children to the local school. I refused to because it was so poor. And when I did league tables, I did a 5-year running league table as well, so you could see what it was like. You could see Manor Park, consistently the worst school on island for attainment. Absolutely shocking. Should be in special measures. Why isn't, I don't know. And the final point on the HR point on the report, that is absolute codswallop, Daphne, absolute codswallop. Department were caught out when the Information Commissioner demanded that they publish the internal moderation reports, which you and your department at the time consistently tried to prevent from being released. And what happened? We showed that there was no evidence of teaching and learning in some of the primary schools. There was inconsistency in in moderation and so on. Now, I understand that the current refusal is now with the Information Commissioner. So if you're directed to publish them, will you publish the reports in full?
Okay, briefly, if you would.
If we're directed to do things by the Information Commissioner, that becomes a different conversation entirely. But in terms of your views are very well known. I have to say, since being in this position, other than you, I haven't had any contact from people putting pressure on to publish league tables or this kind of data. Mostly what people are focused on is individual students in individual schools and enabling those individuals to access the curriculum and become resilient and to be the best they can be. And there is so much more to a good education than simply exam results. It's a whole lot broader than that that students deserve.
Okay.
Just on that, Andy. Okay, I just obviously, as a Douglas South MHK, the comment there about Manor Park, I would absolutely refute what's just been said there. I've been to the school on many occasions, and the students are polite, very well, great performances. They've been absolutely fantastic schools. So I would just like to put a bit of balance onto that comment.
Okay, a note in from Sue, who just said, when it comes to assessing standards in schools, it must be remembered that every pupil is different and will attain at different rates, if at all. Teachers can only do their best, but they can't perform miracles. Basically, you work with what you've got. As long as what's being offered is the best possible, then results aren't necessarily an indication of a successful school. A note in from Sue. Julian, you're live with Education, Sport and Culture.
Hi, Andy, and hello to Daphne, Sarah and Paul.
Mastermind, Julian.
Hiya. I'll go quick. First question. With today's news that the Isle of Man has the highest suicide rate in the UK, what's the current condition of students who were adversely affected in their learning development phase by the COVID lockdowns and masking during 2020 and 21? And if there was a similar future situation like that, would you support further lockdowns and masking for students and indeed their parents, or would you stand against it?
Okay, who wants to take that?
If I start, so there is a big focus within schools on mental health support. There we have I'll Listen, and there's going to be a commission service that DHSC are specifically putting access through all the schools, and the demand on that has been significant, I think it's fair to say, and we absolutely need to support students and ensure that they have the resilience, I suppose, to face life with. We've seen in the past 4 years significant increase in anxiety, school anxiety, but also personal situations that, I mean, I cannot imagine, and I don't remember in my school times facing anything like the amount of things the students these days have to face, and that includes with social media and other pressures. But there is support within schools. I don't know if
Paul Craine?
On that issue of would we lock down again, I think we're still going through the lessons learnt from the pandemic period, and as time goes on, the picture of exactly what happened and who was affected begins to change as you look at issues relating to how young people present themselves at school.
As an ex-teacher, did you make sense of it, how it impacted the pupils?
I think at the time the lockdowns appeared to make sense in an Isle of Man context. We were locking down island-wide. It wasn't just a school thing. It was a broader thing than that. There were huge concerns that there were people at home who were very vulnerable and had children couldn't attend school in the day, go home at the end of the day and so on. It was a very complicated area. But, I think the questions about in the UK as well as the Isle of Man, how effective the lockdowns were at times, were they right to happen? I think broadly we came out of it very well. We had a period of time here when life was normal, when it certainly wasn't normal off island, and then we had some other more difficult periods when the doors opened and so on. But I think it's very hard to make a judgment on the decisions made at the time. With hindsight, we might do things differently. But I think that's why it's so important that we do look at what happened during the COVID period and what the outcomes have been. This outcome that our young people have greater anxieties, greater mental health issues in many ways, and the cues that have now built up to get through CAMS and things like that. They were not things that were anticipated at the time, but we've got a much better understanding of this now, and I think we possibly would do things differently next time around.
Okay, Julian, anything else?
Yeah, I agree. I think the fact that suicide doubled in 2020 and have continued to be bad, I think lockdown's a really bad idea. Focus protection on the people who need it much better. I'll mix two questions. Can Daphne give some details on the school curriculum on the island at the moment in terms of what's the climate change tuition that's being taught? And then quickly at the end, if you could just say what is the future funding situation for the Southern Swimming Pool, as that seems to be a little bit vague at the moment.
Okay, Daphne Caine.
Thank you. In terms of the curriculum, there is significant amount of climate that touches, particularly in primary. We've just started the Outdoor Learning Centre, which has come on stream, which is fantastic availability of outdoor learning space for children that cuts across many, many subjects. In specific climate science, though, I think actually I go to Paul Craine on this as a former teacher of that. And I think there's what is taught is within individual schools.
Yes, there's a great deal taught and has been for a long time. I was teaching down at Castle Rush until 1999. And we had geography we had climate change, or global warming as it was being called then, on our A level from the early 1990s. We were certainly teaching it through the Earth Summit at Rio, 1992. Geography GCSEs these days goes as far as including the Milankovitch cycles and things like that. So it's quite technical, quite detailed. They look at the broad pictures and the possible causes, possible alternatives. So it's a very balanced sort of setup. But it's covered too in various sciences. It might be covered in subjects like moral issues in PSHE and things like that, environmental issues. So there is very significant coverage, different stages at different ages and different subjects.
Okay, and the Southern Pool?
The Southern Pool, the department meets regularly with all the regional pools and is discussing financing with them and ways of improving energy efficiency and money saving potentially. I haven't had any indication that any pool will not be able to come in within its budget, but the department and the regional pools are now meeting regularly.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Julian. Good to hear from you. While we're talking about the Southern Pool, attached to it at the back is Castle Rushen High School, which has been the Newcastle Rushen, but they were probably talking about the Newcastle Rushen High School when you were teaching there, Paul. So what is the latest?
The latest is we've had many, many conversations. I think it's fair to say since I came to the department in February, we have pressed for progress on both the replacement Castle Rushen High School and QE2's STEM block. The Castle Rushen High School is with the DOI's project management unit progressing, and we are optimistic that we will see some action in the coming months. Probably the early part of next year, we'd like to be in a position to say timelines and what we're looking at. But so, at the minute, it's progressing.
So the words Castle Rushen High School and construction are written down somewhere.
Yeah, we watch this space.
Okay, right, we're live with Education, Sport and Culture today. Sarah Maltby, MHK, Daphne Caine, the Minister, and Paul Craine, MLC, are here today. If you want to get in touch, then text, email, call, WhatsApp. After Mannin Line today, it's our 60th anniversary, so we're back into the archives with longtime Manx Radio journalist Sheena Mackay, bringing listeners a news update in the early 1980s after Mannin Line today.
This November at the Gaiety Theatre, experience the riveting tale of justice, redemption and love that is Les Miserables, the drama. From the 20th to the 23rd of November, be enthralled by Parker and Snell's powerful adaptation of Victor Hugo's timeless story, where convict Jean Valjean finds purpose protecting young Cosette amidst the chaos of French rebellion. If you love the story, you'll love the drama. Les Miserables. Book your tickets now at villagaiety.com.
Walk through the Christmas wonderland at Ramsey Garden Centre for a magical range of trees, decorations, unique gifts and much more, including the widest range of indoor and outdoor lights. Christmas at Ramsey Garden Centre, open 7 days a week.
Whether starting a new business or building up your existing business, come and talk to the accounts and tax experts at Nicola Bowker & Co. With their holistic approach to business advice, Nicola Bowker & Co. will work with you to achieve success. For accounts that work, call 861 271.
Dear Santa, this Christmas I would like more customers and more sales, please. I have been very good.
There are more reliable ways to make sure your business gets what it needs this winter. At Manx Radio, we'll create tailor-made advertising solutions to get you the results you want over the festive season and into the new year. Call our friendly sales team now on 682620 and give your business a really happy Christmas and New Year with the nation station, Manx Radio.
Can I have a new bike too?
No, buy your own.
Oh.
We've had some high-octane politics over the past few weeks, so Agenda takes a look at some of the less headline-grabbing, calmer issues going through the Keys and Ledgeco. Bill Henderson tells us about the Public Sector Payments Bill, which tidies up some outdated legislation, particularly relating to members' expenses, and Alex Allenson reveals what's behind the Treasury Miscellaneous Provisions Bill. From the relatively obscure clause amending the 1928 Allotments Act to making it easier to increase fees, it's all considered on Agenda at 5:30 this evening on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. And is the Treasury Minister really trying to pinch our pennies?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Live today through till 1 with Education, Sport and Culture, 25 to 1. David, you're live with Education, Sport and Culture.
Hi, team. Can I just quickly say that I could do with some support from the Minister. The Minister's also a member for Garth. Half of Onken is in Garth, or half of voters vote for Garth. And I have a concern about another government department regarding our lease in Blackberry Lane. And I don't mind telling you, I'm the president of this club in Onken, and we need some support, and I need some support from the Minister.
This is Onken Football Club, yeah?
Onken Football Club at Blackberry Lane, where one department in government, and this is to do with the council of ministers as well, as far as I'm concerned, is that one government department wants to charge us 4 times to the lease we've already got, always wants a cut of what we take in camping, which goes back to the club to run the club for the future. And also, too, I mean, I just wondered whether the government have got any money at all, even to take a percentage out of when we have a car boot sale. Now, can I ask the Minister, can I have a meeting with you sometime in the next couple of weeks? I'm not putting any pressure on you. And just talk about the subject. I will send you all the information. And I hope you could meet with our team and support us on doing something which doesn't cost the taxpayer anything in the Isle of Man. There's not one penny that Onken's used from the taxpayer. It's all come from the community.
Thank you, David. And obviously happy to have a meeting. I also think it'd be useful for you to come talk with Manx Sport and Recreation. We talk regularly, get reports about various pressures and opportunities within sporting facilities, and absolutely happy to have a meeting. But it's not something that's come across my desk or has been highlighted as an issue. So I'd really welcome having your information if you could send that through, as you said.
OK. Let us know how that gets on, would you, David?
I will, no problem. See you, team. Bye.
All right, good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Here's a note in now, and this is regarding the Arts Council. Now, Sarah Maltby, are you involved with the Arts Council?
I am. I'm the chair of the Isle of Man Arts Council.
There's a note in from Romy who says, why don't the Arts Council publish their accounts? Do they?
Yeah, it'd be all on the website.
Is there a list of who Arts Council grants are given to somewhere?
There's an annual report every year that's produced, and that is available, which would say who is, what genre or what area has received funding. Obviously, you've got to be careful with some information that you share, but there's in general the information of who's been awarded is publicly available.
Who's in charge of who is the Arts Council now? Who's in charge?
So the Arts Council membership is made up of volunteers who've put themselves forward just because they're really keen on progressing and seeing arts and culture be, really supported on the Isle of Man. And then there's a team that sits behind that who does the admin work and, the preparation work for them.
Where does that sit in the landscape of arts and culture on the Isle of Man? Are they the only game in town? Is that the Arts Council the main distributor of funds?
No, they've got the Manx Lottery Trust as well, which which I'm also a trustee on. There's lots of different trusts on the island.
Culture Mannin, of course, as well.
And Culture Mannin, yeah. If you look, you will find there's plenty of funding distributors who really want to be able to support, but the applications have to be robust. This is it's so important that we are fair and that we make sure that everybody's given, a good shot at getting some funding, but it has to obviously stack up. The case has to stack up, and it can't just be, giving money away type thing. It has to meet some.
And that's on that's on the website, is it?
Yeah, there's guidelines. There's lots of help, and also just on behalf of Manx Library Trust and the Isle of Man Arts Council, they both have really good websites that tell you exactly what their grants are, what their programs are, and how you can get a hold of that funding for your community project.
Okay, tell us about Mark Cavendish, Sarah Maltby.
Oh, well, I went to school with Mark Cavendish. He was in my year at he was in my tutor
He didn't
group,
ride
in
a bike
fact.
to school, did he?
Well, I knew him more from the dancing days. He was a ballroom dancer, so you never know. He might end up on Strictly now that he's got a bit of time on his hands.
Oh, listen, if the BBC didn't know that, they will now.
They will do now. I'm sure they're all listening into the Mannin Line. So he was in my tutor at school, and so he's gone on to do fantastic things. And we're really pleased to be able to be working very closely with him. Within the department, we do have links that work with him to make sure that what we are planning for him, so that obviously the Mark Cavendish Raceway, which is a big celebration of all that he has achieved, that has been done in collaboration with Mark. And this isn't something that we're just going to sort of do and sort of ask him to turn up and cut a ribbon. It's really working with him to make sure that it's a legacy piece for him, that he's happy with it, and it is exactly what he would like for the young people on the Isle of Man to have.
It's interesting because Mark Cavendish, I mean, it's easy if you say it quickly, what he's done, but that's a phenomenal achievement.
Absolutely,
that is absolutely phenomenal achievement. But he probably wouldn't mind me saying from humble backgrounds as well.
Yeah, well, lots of people from the Isle of Man who do go out and do well, they're all very humble and they all love the island. They speak fondly of it, and he is exactly the same. He comes back as often as he can. He brings his family here, and when he was here for the lap in August for
the kids loved
celebrate.
That, didn't they?
I was talking to his wife and his children there, and they were saying they were going out for a meal tonight, and they were getting a bouncy castle because it's one of their birthdays. They're so they're just so humble and so ordinary. And I think that's the thing about the Isle of Man. We have such an extraordinary things going on here that we don't actually realise.
I want to shout out to Peter Kennick and Johnny Bellis and
absolutely,
the rest of them as well.
and all the dancers that we have, all the gymnastics people that we have that go away and compete, horse riding. There's so many people on the Isle of Man doing good things.
But also in entertainment, because we have Mark Cavendish, obviously from Laxey, but also Samantha Barks in the entertainment field.
Crikey,
so
yes.
with the Isle of Man, particularly Laxey, it's punching above its weight in a big time. But the achievement of the 35th stage win in the Tour de France, it was extraordinary, but it came after an extraordinary number of awards and achievements that Mark Cavendish has made basically over the last 20 years and plus, and to capture that in the raceway, the Sir Mark Cavendish Raceway that's being developed around the NSC track is going to be really exciting. And hopefully it's being put together now with the team at the National Sports Centre.
Peter says, could you ask Mrs. Maltby what's happening with the Brian Neal sculpture at Niarble? It's gone quiet.
Yes, so the Brian Neal sculpture is currently sitting with DEFRA at the moment, I think, to look for planning permission for an alternative site to what was consulted on. So, there'll be more to come from that, I suppose, in the next week or so.
Here's one. This is about schools funding. How well, this is for Minister, first of all, how well do you think the schools are funded? I'm aware of staff who this year have purchased pens, pencils, rubbers, rulers, glue sticks to give to their class to have what they need for the new school year. Teachers have always dipped into their pockets for things for their class, and of course that's often forgotten, but they used to be for extras, not basics. I mean, you go to Treasury for funding for education, sport and culture. How tough are things?
Well, we all know that budgets are tight. I think that absolutely students in every age group should be able to access the basic resources that they need, and primary schools certainly have a budget for resources as well as for staff. I'm aware, I was told a teacher had done a bit of painting and refreshing in rooms, and I think that there is that tradition as well, that teachers like to put their own stamp on it and have it nice for students returning. And I never underestimate the huge amount of commitment we have from all the teaching and education professionals on this island for putting the best efforts in to get the best out of students. But obviously, yes, from a department point of view, we will be going for budgeting. There are many demands on the education budget, as I explained. You know, the £2.5 million it costs just to provide school meals across primary and secondary, and then you've got an increase in additional education needs that we are having to accommodate when you're looking at specialist provision centres and the demands on that, the demands preschool. But you know, as a government, this government has delivered 600 more children now in the preschool age group and in the childcare credits. So I think it's 1,300 under fives are now receiving £4,600 contribution towards their nursery. And, you know, there's only so much cake, and we divide it up and we hopefully put the resources in the best way to support children and families.
I was going to ask you, are the rolls going up or are they going down?
Well, that's Paul's area.
Mr. Statistics.
In terms of the highest births in the Isle of Man were in the years 2009, 2010. They're now currently in years 10 and 11. So the school numbers have been rising in secondary schools these last few years. But as the current years 10 and 11 pass through, we might expect some easing off of that. In the primary schools, the numbers are now down on what they were 4 or 5 years ago, and they're continuing to drop. We've had this 43% drop in births over 12 years. So the lowest birth year was 2022 at the moment. So the numbers will go down, but there are so many other things changing in the schools too. We talked before about AEN and special needs and so on. And I think we're seeing more students with making more demands on the schools. So it doesn't mean the schools, when you go into them, look all hollowed out with numbers dropping. You know, it's more complicated than that.
Okay, and with the government's stated aim of increasing the Isle of Man's population, presumably some of that increased population will be of school age. Is that something the department can factor in?
Yes, indeed, that would be the hope. You know, where we are at the moment, you know, with a different hat on, people say to me, what does it matter if the births are going down in the Isle of Man? It does matter, because in 10 or 15 years' time, it's going to mean fewer school leavers, fewer going to university, fewer coming back. It's going to change our workforce in time to come. So it does make a difference. And some of the initiatives that have been put in place, like the childcare credits, are not just about trying to support families who might have births in the future. It is also about incentivising movement into the Isle of Man. If families are considering moving in, they're welcome, because that's what the population structure needs at the moment. We've got this huge imbalance. So they're welcomed, and they'd be welcomed in the schools.
OK, a question for the Minister now. This is from Sam, who just says, surely cutting back bus guards SCH1 and SCH2 can't have saved much money. I mean, why do it?
That's a decision by the DOI with the Department of Infrastructure with bus vanning.
So it's not education.
I'm aware that the department, I think this afternoon, is having a meeting with bus vanning, and we've had a number of concerns raised, particularly about the after-school activity. I know from my own children, you know, if the cut-off is 5 o'clock, to be able to use your school card, and the bus is at 5:10. Yeah. So there are talks ongoing to see, you know, what is the best outcome for all students, particularly those who may be doing after-school activities.
Got a note in from Jan. This is Jan 126. Says, with the changes to their after bus pass after 5 o'clock, it means children who live in the north have to pay to get home from after-school clubs. The bus doesn't leave Ramsey till 5:05. So this is discriminating against the pupils who live in the north. So did you know about it before it was going to happen?
Immediately before.
But
I don't know. Obviously, the department is engaging with the DOI and bus vanning to make certain representations. And I'm aware that I think the the 3 leaves Ramsey at 5:10. Any buses serving the north of the island absolutely is just after 5. So there's certain things that perhaps we can hopefully discuss in a positive way with that the department is engaged with the Department of Infrastructure this afternoon, I believe.
Okay. What's happening to the upgrade for the bowl in Douglas? This is a message in from Barry, who just says, I understand it's going to be upgraded for the Island Games. Is this true?
Yes, it is. We've got plans to do, I think it's the roof on the, in the main auditorium. There's a number of bids, I suppose, we'd be making in terms of budgeting. But hopefully when the Island Games comes back to the Isle of Man in 2029, there are just like it was previously in the 85 and again in 2001, hopefully we will see significant investment and improvement in our already fantastic sports centre, particularly based around the National Sports Centre.
And that won't just then be a benefit for, that event, it'll be a benefit for all our island event residents, and visitors that come over as well to compete here for different sports. It's one of these things that's been in the planning process from maybe 2 years ago. It's been like it's a long old process to make sure that we are fit and ready, but also that we have a good legacy project for future years. So it's not just make it look pretty for the games.
Well, that
it
whole,
has to be something that
whole campus, the NSC and the bowl, I remember the Island Games was at year 2000.
2001.
Do you remember when the people from Jersey came over and their jaws hit the floor because of the NSC, the facilities, the bowl, the athletics track? It looked fantastic.
Absolutely. The amount of sporting facilities we have for a population the size of 85,000 on the Isle of Man is far and away beyond what you would have in an average sized town, particularly in close proximity. And we're building on that. And actually, the pleasing part of that is the number of particularly young people who are engaged in sport, and the Manx Youth Games opens up the ability to take part in sport at community level, and many of those young people are then enthused enough to go off and join sports clubs and continue in sport.
Representing the island at different events, and we just spoke about it just briefly before about how we have so many people who go off and represent the island and come back with all these fantastic achievements, and just to get them to that standard is it's a testament to what we have on the island.
Okay, we're with education, sport and culture. Now, University College Isle of Man has been, what, with us now, 10 years or so, isn't it? Something like that. So where does it fit in the infrastructure? I mean, they're obviously doing more university courses, more degree courses. Is that obviously an attempt to keep people on the Isle of Man doing degrees in a hope that they'll stay?
I think that we are responsive to the changing demands of our students. We're actually reviewing our student awards legislation. We're having many more students opting to study on the island, and also a larger number opting to go into work and study alongside gainful employment as well. So the University College Isle of Man, happily, we've just announced the extension of the partnership with the University of Chester, and that has been extended to 2030. And the benefits of that within the island are that we have very credible, high-level tutors and a range of subjects. I think there were 300 students who are ongoing. I went to the graduation ceremony just last month at the Villa. Really happy occasion. A huge number of students in social care to accountancy, all kinds of qualifications and degrees across the board. And the UCM is adapting, but we benefit so much by having students be able to go on the University of Chester, and actually the students' qualifications, I've got in mind that 87% of Isle of Man students, 78% of theirs are achieving the first class and 2-1 degree level thanks to that partnership, but being able to study in the Isle of Man. So it's more a case of bringing excellence in education and the facilitating young people to access that education in whatever area they want. But I think we have seen similar to climate anxiety, to anxiety about school attendance. There's a big world out there, and there are some perceptions as well of places. Going away to university isn't for everyone, and when you have really talented students, it's it's a changing picture, I suppose, of making that higher education available on the island.
Okay, here's a question for Paul Craine, and it is, how do we attract teachers from off the Isle of Man and get them to stay? Because sometimes teaching on the Isle of Man isn't for everybody. People who come from cities can feel a bit constrained here. Is the Isle of Man a welcoming place for teachers, Paul Craine?
I think it is. There's a lot of work that's been done to try and make it so. The rates of pay here are very competitive, with pay similar to the London Fringe allowances, with an additional element on top of that. But we have good schools for them to come to. They're respected in the community in many ways. It's a good community to live in. The idea that teachers will come here and stay here permanently, I don't guess is true. These are people, especially if they're younger teachers, they may move in, teach here for 5 years, 10 years, move on to somewhere else. And that's always going to happen. Indeed, always has happened, that sort of routine through. But I think our schools are good places to work. I think the Isle of Man is a great community to live in. And I think in terms of attracting people generally to the Isle of Man, there's an awful lot here that we perhaps don't communicate well enough, often enough.
And would you recommend a career as a teacher?
Yes, I would. Yes, I taught for 20 years and then was in the advisory service. And yes, I think one of the greatest sort of enrichments of my life as a man who's now nearly 70 is when I meet students that I used to teach.
Oh, Mr. Craine.
Yeah, who are heading up all sorts of areas, local businesses in the public sector and the private sector, and indeed in the House of Keys. So I taught the speaker.
All right.
It's great to have that and come across them and share memories with them.
All right, thanks for being with us today. Thanks to Paul Craine, thanks to Daphne Caine, thanks to Sarah Maltby. We've been with education, sport and culture, and back with an open line tomorrow between 12 and 1. If you want to follow up on anything, by all means, you're more than welcome to. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.